is pushing us down the road to serfdom? Well, a mob of liberals, says the new book, Demonic. Liberals with a fantasy that a select group of elites will figure out the program, inflexibly impose it on the people, and thereby regenerate mankind. It's written by Ann Coulter. A mob of liberals? Come on, they're just people.
People do a lot. Hitler and Stalin were just people. Maximilian Robespierre, Castro, and Mao, and they all led mobs. And I think it does trace back, I do 200 years of the history of liberalism, beginning with the French Revolution, when that's where the idea comes from. It's exactly the opposite of Friedrich Hayek and John Locke. It is the idea that there's a general will out there, and you need the smart people at the top, and they will do, as you just said, figure out the program, impose it on the people because it's the general will, and anyone who disagrees with the general will have to be guillotined. And then everyone will believe the general will because everyone else is dead.
And it sort of makes sense that some people are smarter than others, some people are more moral than others. A lot of people intuitively just believe it's right for these elites to set the tone.
Mostly those elites themselves. As with Obamacare. Don't worry, America, we know you don't want it, but don't worry, my roommate and I are both Rhodes Scholars, and we've figured out the program. Nobody else has figured it out for 30,000 years. We must just be smarter. But somehow it never works, and for 200 years it hasn't worked. We are the revolution, the American Revolution, in contrast to the French Revolution, is the one that does not believe that. And the Federalist Papers are shot through with warnings about a king, a monarch, people trying to decide things for others, and describing how our new Constitution would create the maximum possible freedom by opposing interest against interest.
And that lets ideas bubble up from the bottom. And that was Hayek's argument, that the planners never know enough. They don't know what 300 million people want to do. And if they did, they wouldn't know what we wanted to do tomorrow.
That's right. Thomas Sowell, one of his points in one of his books is that the Soviet planners had to set prices for, I forget the precise figure, but it was something like 30,000 different products.
And now there are more, and they couldn't do it then. They couldn't begin to do it. And because they couldn't set the correct price, they had too much of some stuff and ran out of other things.
But there will always be the impulse in the people who want to be the elites.
And did you ever read this book and get inspired by it? I mean, you're a legal scholar, not an economic one.
I read it in college at Cornell. It was like one of the first books in college I ever read that made sense. And I was so excited. It was a small discussion group with a professor, but I don't know, I was sick. I had another exam that day. This is the one discussion group I missed. So I asked one of my friends, I was so excited. I said, so what was it like, the discussion about the road to serfdom? And he said, oh, that book, everybody hated that book.
Well, they don't hate it now. It has a comeback. And if you want to try to understand Hayek's ideas, this is a good place to start. To really understand what Hayek had in mind for how a society should be run, you should read the Constitution of Liberty. But this is really heavy going. If you want the ultra fun version, you can try Ann's book. But so let's talk about that. You talk about this violence that liberal mobs have consistently used violence.
Yes. And just, I mean, in the last 100 years in this country, even back to the Civil War, you had Democrats in New York City engaging in mob uprisings, lynching blacks, dragging them through the streets with their genitals. But Abraham Lincoln just took troops from the Civil War, sent them in, smashed them. Ku Klux Klan, another Democrat.
I don't think of them as liberals.
The Ku Klux Klan was originally formed to terrorize Republicans, and then they switched to terrorizing blacks because it was Republicans who were fighting for black civil rights. I have a chapter on the civil rights movement, the truth about it, and it has been Republicans for fighting for civil rights. It was Democrats appealing to the mob. They had to appeal to that mob within their party the same way today Democrats appeal to abortion-mad feminists.
And there are no conservative mobs?
There really aren't. Conservatives are so much more in the American tradition. I mean, look at the Tea Parties. That's about the closest you could come because you do have humans going on the street.
Certainly not a mob, though it's been portrayed as
one. No, they are thinkers like our revolutionary forefathers. They're reading the Constitution. They're trying to hold politicians' feet to the fire by following that Constitution.
But your book is over the top, as usual. You write, intoxicated by messianic goals, the promise of instant gratification, and adrenaline-pumping exhortations, mobs create mayhem, leaving a smoldering heap of wreckage for their leaders to climb to power.
Yes.
Not really? When? Where? What?
Well, even now you see this in the left and in the Democratic Party and the way they propose what they're going to do for us. Look at Social Security and Medicare. They're 10 years away from bankruptcy. Oh, don't worry, those Republicans, they want to push you off the cliff in your wheelchair, but we'll give you free treats. It's a Ponzi scheme. It's the definition of a Ponzi scheme.
I'm more charitable. I think of them as well-intended, just wrong about the economics.
No,
I think they really believe that this will help people, and they usually don't riot.
No, it is not. Well, two things. First, I mean, I am separating the psychological mob from the literal mobs, but you always have to be on guard against the literal mob, as this country did in the 60s with the Weathermen and the SDS. You have to smash a mob. It can rise up at any time. What was the first point you were saying? Oh, that they're well-intentioned. Ha! I deny that, John Stossel. No, how can you explain an ad?
They want to save us.
With Representative Paul Ryan pushing a little old lady in her wheelchair off the cliff? How can you explain? You cannot tell me any. Well, maybe Nancy Pelosi or Barbara Boxer.
He just looked like Paul Ryan. It really wasn't the actual Paul Ryan.
Okay, there may be some Democrats, Barbara Boxer, Patty Murray, they may actually believe that Obamacare is going to give everyone free health care, and it will be better than your health care now.
I think they do.
And it will save money. No, those two
most
do.
Of them
Obama does
Only
not
those
believe
two?
that.
The other ones are
No,
just
you cannot
trying
believe
to
that.
gain power for themselves?
Yes! Yes!
You write...
This is an all-you-can-eat chocolate cake that cuts calories, that helps you lose weight.
As you talk about in your book the totalitarian plans, you say you will note the similarities to many of the Democratic schemes. Mm-hmm. What about the Republican schemes, like the prescription drug plan, farm subsidies? That was George Bush going liberal, and I write for Human Events, and we spent months attacking that plan. How about the drug war? That's a Republican scheme.
Oh, you libertarians and the drug war.
It's a Republican scheme.
Oh, when I come back and we discuss libertarians, I'm going to point out that amidst this mass of regulation, you people cannot stop talking about legalizing drugs, and you'll deny it. So, viewers, remember that.
No, it's a big one. It's a big one. All right, we will come back to that. Thank you very much, Ann Coulter. When we return, the politician who chewed out his country's leader in such a remarkable way that the YouTube clip of it has been watched 3 million times.